One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today on the show, we've got the founder and CEO of Sapper Consulting, a guy named Jeff Winters, who is, in his own words, one of the top 10 people in the world to be able to get a dream meeting, a meeting with virtually anybody in the world. And we actually have a contest that we are announcing in this episode, so give it a listen. Now, before we get there, of course, we want to thank our sponsors, and Sapper Consulting is one of those sponsors. Sales enablement is easy. All you got to do is create perfectly targeted content, stay informed on email best practices, drive more engagement quarter over quarter, spend less money, and do all of this with less time. Okay, it's not that easy. But Sapper Consulting has built Regie, R-E-G-I-E, to keep the promise of sales enablement alive and keep your team doing what they do best, which is winning. Regie uses artificial intelligence to create entire outbound, inbound, and even follow-up sales campaigns faster. Using over 1 billion rows of performance data across 75 industries, Regie uses your targeting to inform your campaigns, decreases the time your team spends creating campaigns, and because the campaigns are structured on email best practices, your campaign warm-up period will shrink. The result? More sales meetings. Start creating better sequences faster. Visit go.regie.io. Remember, that's just one G. Our second sponsor is Outreach, the #1 sales engagement platform. Outreach revolutionizes customer engagement by moving away from siloed conversations to a streamlined and customer-centric journey, leveraging the next generation of artificial intelligence. Everybody's using artificial intelligence these days. If you're not using artificial intelligence, why are you even alive? The platform allows sales reps to deliver consistent, relevant, and responsible communication for each prospect every time, enabling personalization at scale never before possible. Previously unthinkable. You couldn't even think it because it wasn't thinkable. It was unthinkable. Anyway, check them out at www.outreach.io. Without further ado, let's listen to my interview with Jeff Martin. Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today on the show, we're honored and excited to have Jeff Winters. Jeff is the founder and CEO of Sapper Consulting. Sapper helps clients, over 600 clients, supercharge their top of funnel. From his kitchen table, Jeff has led Sapper to be the 170th fastest growing private company in the United States and employs over 125 people. It's a bootstrap company, so that's an incredible stat. He's also an expert on sales and sales engagement. He's been named one of the 20 speakers you shouldn't miss the opportunity to see in Forbes magazine. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Sam, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. So we start with a baseball card. Your name is Jeff Winters. I'm assuming I pronounced Sapper correctly?
You did. Perfect.
Great. What does the company do in your words? Give us the opportunity to learn more from the founder.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks again for having me. What we do in my words is we do one thing 3 ways. So we supercharge your top of funnel. That's the one thing, help you get more sales meetings, drive more pipeline. And we do it in 3 ways. The first is we do it for you. You come to us, you want to have us get more meetings and put more appointments on your calendar. Our team does it stem to stern. We send out the messages, we put the meetings on your calendar. Your sales team, your AEs, whomever show up at the end of the day with a meeting full of calendars or a calendar full of meetings with prospects they want to talk to. Second way we do it is done with you. So, like you said, we've done this right now. We're doing it for 600 plus customers. We got a lot of know-how, a lot of best practice. And so we'll have customers come to us and say, look, we don't need your people. We've got infrastructure. We've got the sales tech. We just want your best practice and your know-how. And so we do a pretty standard consulting engagement, and we do it with them. And then last is do it yourself. And we're really excited. We launched Regie, our product, back in February. But we're releasing the new and improved Regie now. And basically what Regie will do is you can log into Regie and tell it the buyer persona that you want to meet with, and it'll spit out emails, 10 emails in under 3 minutes. It'll give you all the touch types for the campaign, so email, phone call, social, etc. And now it'll do it with tone in mind. So it'll customize or help you customize the tone of your outreach to the specific buyer persona. So one thing done 3 ways: do it for you, do it with you, or do it yourself.
That's amazing. So let's learn more. What's your background, and I think you've been doing Sapper for 10 years. Walk us through your background, how you came to start Sapper, where you're all based. Give us a little bit more about the company and the origins of the company.
Sure. So I've actually been doing Sapper like 7.5 years. Been in startup land, I guess, for 10, and I'll give you the other 2.5. So I started Sapper, like I said, 7.5 years ago. And the origin story is this. So I took a job just prior to Sapper. My job was basically to go in and be the head of sales at a different startup. And I get there on the first day and I'm all excited. I'm like 26. I feel like this guy has found me out of obscurity, the CEO. He sees in me all the potential my mother always told me I had. And he sits me down on my first day and he goes, look, Jeff, we're really excited to have you. There's a few things you ought to know. Number one, product's great, but it hasn't technically been sold to anyone. And number two, I really kind of only want you to sell it to chief human resources officers at Fortune 1000 companies. But we're super excited to have you. Good luck. And so at that point, I realized that I have not been found because of my amazing potential. I've been found because this is going to be a really hard job and maybe some other people didn't want to do it. But nonetheless, I'm up for a challenge. So I spent 6 months. I can't get a hold of anybody. I mean, nothing. And so finally, I'm thinking, should I quit or not? And so what I decided to do is I start waking up in the middle of the night, like 2, 3 in the morning and sending funny emails. And I'm not kidding you. I got 170 meetings in 1 year. And I'm flying around the country. And I'll never forget, there's one at Morgan Stanley that sticks out. And, I go to the 500th floor of this, enormous edifice in New York. And I walk in. It's a conference room full of people. And the chief human resources officer walks in. He goes, we're excited to see the software. Thanks for coming. How in the world did you get this meeting? Like, how did you get this meeting? I can't believe that we are all here to meet with you, which was highly insulting, but also the start of the business, because I realized at that point that if I could get meetings for this company with these people, I get meetings for anybody with anybody. I quit, and Sapper was born.
So what were the funny emails?
I don't think you're going to think they're that funny. I'm worried the audience is going to think they're that funny. Definitely not by today's standard. But basically what it said was, my name is Jeff Winters. I am the head of sales for a startup company in a basement office in the Silicon Prairie of St. Louis, Missouri. And then in parentheses, it says, I know you're jealous. And then I went into what we do and how we did it. And that was it. And I know your audience isn't cracking up and saying, oh my goodness, that's the most hysterical email I've ever read. But you know what? It worked like a charm, because at the time, people just weren't using humor in emails. And that was the humor I used. And it just got a crazy response at 2 a.m.
Wow. And so tell us, a little bit more about Sapper. So you quit after this amazing meeting at Morgan Stanley, you start the company, and what happens from there? And how also, because I think what you said about Reggie is pretty amazing. So how did you develop the ability, not that you don't have the ability as a founder, but just, how'd you build such an amazing product? I'm curious about sort of the last 7.5 years, how it's grown, because 600 clients and so many different ways that they can leverage your resources is incredibly impressive. And you started just one person. So what was that growth journey like?
Yeah. So the first couple of years were really hard for all you out there who are working at your kitchen table. I guess we're all working at our kitchen table now, but for those of you that were working at your kitchen table because you had no office pre-coronavirus, I hear you. I was there. My brother and I in my kitchen for 1.5 years or so, until he scratched the floor with a chair and my wife kicked us out. Like that's the great exciting story for 2 years. And I'm sure some of your listeners are there now. And to them, I say, keep going, keep persevering. In terms of the technology, you were right when you said it. I don't have the ability to build this technology. And so I'll tell you how it came about. We were for so long sending so many outbound communications to clients across a broad spectrum of the universe, like every ICP, like every buyer persona we were working on behalf of. And so our team started thinking, we probably have a unique treasure trove of data that would be very hard to have. We know by persona, by ICP, how people respond to what for a long period of time, and how you can more specifically get meetings with these individuals, because that was the name of the game. And so the idea was, and we brought in this brilliant CTO who's got a PhD in informatics. I mean, the guy is just a genius. We said, look, we got together and he said, I think that we can figure out how to tap into this data, a couple billion rows of data, and triangulate what's going to work by persona. And I was like, I can't believe it. So that's the mission we set out on. And he's done an amazing job at giving us this. So he gave us this differentiator inside of our business. So this is what our team uses and why we're special and why we're different as a company. And then, like so many other companies before us, you start telling people about your differentiator and they go, well, wait a minute. What if we just want to buy your differentiator? What if we just want to buy Reggie? We want to buy the secret sauce. And so we built it. We built it and we launched it, and it's a first of its kind tool, and it's great in that it enables teams who are stuck, that are using sales engagement, who are stuck and not getting enough meetings to get unstuck. It's great in that it allows teams who are writing tons of different messages and emails to write them in mass and do it a whole lot more quickly. And it's great for folks who want to get a leg up, who haven't used sales engagement before. And so it's got these awesome utilities. And so that's how we got to Reggie.
That's amazing. So any fun or interesting examples of the differences in terms of communication style or preferences by persona? You know, this type of person likes it this way, that type of person likes it that way. Anything that's emerged that might be interesting for the audience?
Yeah. I think the big thing that's emerged is how little individuals take into account tone by persona and what personas care about. Like, to me, that's the big aha. It's not the different, like some emails need to be shorter, some need to be longer, some need to be more fact-based, some need to be more story-based. Like, those are all things you would probably assume. And if I told you, you wouldn't be wowed by it. Like, a director of IT is not going to respond to the same in the same way as a director of HR. Like, we're talking about very different personality types. But I think the key takeaway here is how much individuals under-index on their audience and the personality of their audience. That, to me, is the big takeaway that, as we go on in our conversation, we'll hit on why it's so important, especially in light of how difficult outbound prospecting is today and how difficult it's going to get in the future.
Well, let's talk about that. So let's just focus on that last sentence. You mentioned it's difficult and it's getting more difficult. Tell us why you think that. Tell us how it's getting more difficult and what we need to do to prepare.
Sure. So first of all, here's what I'd say. I'd say if you're an outbound prospector, today is the easiest day of doing your job you're ever going to have going forward. Like, tomorrow's going to be harder, the next day's going to be harder, the next day's going to be harder than that. And I'll give you the data and I'll give you the reasons why. So first of all, quality conversations down from 8 on average in 2010 to 5. Attempts per prospect up from 4.7 in 2010, now near 10. Nearly half of all salespeople say that prospecting is the hardest part of their jobs. And now let's just zone in on COVID. Like, since March, sales email volumes up 60%, reply rates are down 25%. Okay. So there should be no doubt. And I guarantee you, for your listeners, nobody's sitting there going, that's BS. Like, it's not getting harder. It is getting harder. And let me just list for you a short list of the companies and institutions and governments that are making it harder. And I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. I'm just going to give you a list. Okay. Apple, in terms of helping from their phones, like marking things as spam callers, Google and Microsoft, who are doing spam in the inbox, the continent of Europe with GDPR, like the state of California with privacy regulations. Like, I'm not saying that these are wrong by any means. I'm just saying, like, think of the headwinds there that you're dealing with. Like, some of the most brilliant, well-capitalized companies in the history of the world, continents, states, and governments, are all making it harder for outbound prospecting. And nobody's talking about it in those terms. And so I wanted to bring light to this conversation here, and also to share that, like, the winners and losers of outbound prospecting future are going to be determined by how well, like, they're preparing now and the steps they're taking now. And so it's awesome for anybody who's listening and cares about this, that they care enough to want to be a winner and want to take steps to mitigate how difficult this is going to be.
And you mentioned that you've got like a cold outbound future proofing checklist. So what is the checklist for people that are aware that the world is conspiring against them? It's getting harder to do outbound prospecting. They need to prepare themselves. So go through that checklist for us.
Sure. So the first is deliverability. And it's everybody's favorite wonky topic. But we know companies who have gone from getting hundreds of meetings a month to literally zero in a blink of an eye because their email domain had a problem. And so the first thing on the checklist is getting deliverability down, and also preparing for if you don't. So from a deliverability standpoint, for all those who aren't super familiar with deliverability, it's just the idea that I can get an email into your inbox. I can get an email into your inbox because these are table stakes. This is a must-have. And so a couple of tips for listeners. First is make sure that you have backup domains. And that you're getting them ready now. So if you're a big outbound prospecting shop, you should have a couple of extra domains that you are warming up in the background, that you are getting interaction on in case you need them to do more outbound prospecting.
Domains would be like .biz or something like that for your company, or some modification of spelling. Is that what you mean?
That's right. That's exactly right. Some modification that you are using, obviously within proper guidelines of best practice, that you are using to make sure that your domains, that if you run into an issue with your domain for whatever reason, that you have others you can use.
Makes sense.
And in order to do that, you've got to have list perfection. Like list perfection is the order of the day now. Like having a good list, a prospect list that's 85% accurate, 90% accurate is unacceptable. You got to rule that out of your vocabulary. Like you have to have 100% accurate lists. And here's why. Because if you don't, Google and Microsoft, they have a black box of how the spam filtration works. But here's what we know. We know that detection is based and foldering is based in some measure on interaction. And if we are not sending to the perfect list, we're going to have bounces, we're going to have lack of interaction. Like it's totally unacceptable. So you got to adopt like the Santa Claus method. Like you got to make the list, you got to check it twice. You need to be running very tactically. You need to be running your lists through at least one other checkpoint. And you've got to dial the stringency on that checkpoint up. So if you're using the certified or you're using never bounce, like things like that, like you got to make sure that the stringency is dialed up a lot. Third tip is around the email content you're using. Email content has to be persona-based. And the tip I would give here, I know there's all sorts of discussion in the ethos around personalization and hyper-personalization. And I go against that a little bit. Because to me, a lot of the talk around personalization and hyper-personalization is really meant for major enterprise-focused businesses, AEs, and SDRs. Because for so many of us, it's just not possible. Like it's just not scalable. And so there's got to be some happy medium between like sending a ton of emails to the universe and making sure I'm hyper-personalizing everything and spending 8-10 minutes in email. And so what I'd say to the audience here, I think this is super important, is find that happy medium. And the way that you do that is three things. The first, you have to make sure that email does not look automated. You have to say something in the first sentence of that email that grabs the reader's attention and they go, oh, this isn't automated.
What's a great example? Give me a great example.
Sure. So a great example here would be something like, hey, just picked up the kids from school and had a second and wanted to shoot you a note. Hey, just finished dinner and I was looking through my inbox and I've got to talk to you. Like, hey, I'm just finishing, just got back from a jog and like wanted to reach out. It's things like that.
Okay.
Are the key. Because so many emails you get to go, I hope you're well. I hope things are good.
Right.
That's what every automated email starts with. And I'm looking at the preview content and I'm going, this is automated.
I hope in this unprecedented time, I hope you're safe and sound or something like that. Not good.
Yeah, that is absolutely 100% automated all the time. And I'm never opening it. So even if I've gotten over the deliverability hump, even if I've got a perfect list, now I'm hitting you with, I hope things are well.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think about subject lines? Any points of view on subject lines? I used to have a theory that a question mark in a subject line got better open and reply rates, but I don't know if that's true anymore. What do you see as one of the world's gurus?
Well, thank you for saying one of the world's gurus. I'm sure I take that title.
600 plus clients.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So what I see is you can go one of two ways. So version 1 is a 1 to 3 word subject line that is generic. Connection, quick question, introduction, things like that. Method 2 is to give a little tidbit about what you're going to say that doesn't sound spammy. Number 2 is a lot harder, but if it works, it's better, in my opinion, because someone is opening with the intent to be interested. Opening with the intent to be interested. So those are my 2 points of view on subject lines.
Right. The generic might get more open rates, but kind of to the point is less qualified in a way.
It can be. Yeah. It can.
Yeah.
You're
okay, cool.
But back to the point, like the preview text, I would argue, is as important or more important than the subject line.
Love it. That's a great insight. Okay,
cool. That's the key. Like, make your first 2 sentences, let them know this is coming from a human.
Absolutely. We will, Jeff. We will.
All right. Good.
What else you got?
I'm yelling.
No, it's. I'm going to do it. I don't want to upset you.
2. Thank you. I appreciate that. 2 on email content. So number 1 on email content, we got in a good tangent, is writing in style, or making sure it's not automated. Got to write in the style and tone of the buyer. We talked about that. And then last is, and this is sort of unconventional, is the best email content is accompanied by phone and LinkedIn touches. The best email content is accompanied by phone and LinkedIn touches. Yes, there's great data that it increases reply rates, but more than that, it's all about continuing to humanize what you're doing. If I see your face, I know I'm less likely to think that you are sending this out to a zillion people. If I hear your voice, I'm less likely to think you're sending this out to a zillion people. So those are the 3 tips.
I like it. You said in the past, I might have read this somewhere or heard you say it, that no lazy bumps. Now, tell us what you mean by that. Is that when, bumping this to the top of your inbox, wanted to make sure you saw this, and then the next touch is, hey, it looks like we're not able to connect, and meanwhile, you as the buyer have never even responded or interacted with this person anyway. Is that what you mean by lazy bumps?
That's exactly right. I'm bumping this. We see these all the time now. Like, we're bumping this to the top of your inbox. Want to make sure you saw my last message. Like, those are okay if they are accompanied with some value, with a great article that you think would be interesting for that person, with a case study, with a white paper. Like, no lazy bumps means you've got to add value in the bump email, because the bump email, like anything else in this world, once it gets to be a best practice, it's not a best practice anymore. So you got to be more creative and add value with our bumps.
Fair enough. Okay. So we're going through the future proofing list. The first is deliverability. The second is list perfection. The third is email content.
Yep.
Anything else that you want to go through in terms of this checklist? Because I think it's fantastic.
I got one more. And last thing on email content is you have to refresh your sequences. You have to. Your emails need to be refreshed at least once a quarter. Otherwise, you're going to get, the algorithms are going to track the types of messages we believe. You're going to have spam issues. And also, you want to be fresh with your content. So refresh once a quarter. The last piece is around channel specialization. So to me, in the future world, you're going to have experts at each company. And some of these will be by committee in terms of social channel engagement, email engagement, and phone engagement. One thing that I cannot understand right now is how we are expecting SDRs to write amazing prospecting emails in addition to all the things that they do with their day. And I see this online all the time. They go, for SDRs, you got to hire for great writing ability. Seriously? We want these people to make phone calls, accept rejection, track to be an AE, make sure they're using sales engagement, make sure they're using CRM. Oh, and they got to write like Shakespeare. These are different people. I don't understand how the expectation could be there that this is one person. SDRs are amazing, incredible, lifeblood of so many companies. You can only do so many things at once, and you can only be great at so many things. And so this is something I would focus on, and we recommend to our clients, is making sure that email content is written by a committee and then tested and then put into practice. Make sure that your phone scripts are done by a committee. We don't want individuals going off. We want people innovating, of course, but we want, broadly speaking, there to be best practice within the organization. And as fast as things are moving, like we need specialization across these different channels in order to make sure that if one becomes less effective, we're ready. We're rock stars on the phone. If email's not working as well, we're rock stars on the phone. If phone's not working as well, we're rock stars on social. And you can only do that with focus.
That makes sense. One of the issues, I'm curious on your reaction to this. One of the issues in the past that I've seen when other people write emails, oftentimes, and I love my marketing comrades, but often it comes from marketing, is that it comes out of some like marketing meeting / focus group where it just doesn't sound like English anymore. It is so feature heavy, and it is a bunch of buzzwords that don't even make sense. And that's sometimes the fear that I have with other people writing SDR emails, which is they just came out of some brainstorming session where they've listed all of the key defining, differentiating attributes of themselves that they see relative to the competitors, but they are using weird techno speak that nobody actually uses. And that's one of the ways that I can tell that something is instantly automated, because it just reads like, a user manual.
Yes, totally agree. I'm treading lightly here. I think that here's what I think. I think that sales messaging and sales campaign messaging is totally separate and distinct from marketing messaging. And I'm sure I'm the millionth person to say that. But I think as you start to think about how do you then craft your sales messaging, you sort of jump to have marketing do it. That's not what I would have said. If you said, Jeff, how would you do it? Like, I would not say, oh, kick it to marketing and let them do it. Not at all. What I would be using is, I'm biased, obviously, like Reggie for us is the tool that helps us write this awesome persona-driven content. But if you're not using a Reggie or a tool like Reggie, then what you're doing is you have a committee, and that committee is made up of practitioners. So folks that are either on the front line or have recently been on the front line, who are not writing in the theoretical, who are writing in the practical, and who know what it takes to take awesome sales messaging, which is different from marketing messaging, in my opinion, and get it to work. And so that to me is the difference. It's the who, not the what.
Makes a lot of sense. So one topic I want to make sure we cover is this concept, because you mentioned it, with that Morgan Stanley anecdote, which I love, which is just this concept of a dream meeting, getting a meeting with, now there's a counterpoint of just about, is there such a thing as a dream meeting, because no one person makes decisions anymore. And the concept of, one economic buyer has been thrown out the window. Every decision is by committee. But nevertheless, let's put that aside. There is this idea of a dream meeting, the perfect person, the chief HR, the CHRO, if you're selling HR software, the CFO, the CRO. How do you do it? What are your insights there?
Yeah. So you asked me a question in the pre-work, and the question was, name one thing in the world that you're like top 10 at or something. And it's an impossible question, right? So I thought about it. And finally I was like, if you put 10 people in a room, and I was one of them, and somebody came in and said, hey, and they were all like the best at this as well. If you put the top 10 in the world in one room, you said, all right, I want you guys to get a sales meeting with X person. By the way, I'm not saying this is the greatest thing to be good at. Like, I'd rather be good at a zillion different things, but this is
That's a pretty good thing. It's a pretty good thing.
Like,
it's a lucrative thing.
I think I'd be very competitive in this room. And I'll give you my favorite story, and then I want to share a little test. So I was my first client. This guy is a mental toughness coach. He's amazing. And it's my first client after I quit my old job. And he said, I want to get a meeting with Nick Saban of the University of Alabama football team. And I want to be their mental toughness coach. Okay. Do you think a lot of people want to speak to the University of Alabama football team? Like, if you look at the roster of people that speak to them, a couple of weeks ago was Michael Jordan. A couple of years ago was Kobe Bryant. Like, not just anybody gets to speak to the University of Alabama football team. So this is my job. And so this is what he tasked me with. So I'm scrolling through Nick Saban videos, and all of a sudden I get to this video, and it's Saban at a press conference. And a reporter goes, Nick, why do you drive so hard to be great at what you do? And Saban snaps back at him. He goes, why do you drive so hard to be what you do? And he doesn't let the reporter answer. And he paraphrases a Martin Luther King speech. And he says, the reason is because that's who I am. Like, if I were a street sweeper, I'd be the best street sweeper in the world. Like, I'd sweep streets like Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel. Like, I'd have a street sign that said the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. That's what he said. And so I got this idea. We send Saban a 50-pound street sign that says the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. Okay.
That's genius.
Well, it gets better. So start calling to follow up. And his assistant tells us that it's hanging in his house, okay, in his recruiting room where he takes recruits. Swear to God. And so then, to my client's credit, he followed up for a long time after, and he remains one of the mental toughness gurus at Alabama to this day as a result of that. So as I was thinking through that story and thinking through the top 10 in the world and listening to your podcast, I feel like people say that, but they don't get checked on it. Like nobody checks them on their top 10 in the world. So here's what I was thinking. I want to do a dream meeting challenge for your listeners to check my skills on this. So put my money where my mouth is. So I want to start the dream meeting challenge for one of your listeners. Here's what I want to do. If you comment under the LinkedIn announcement of this podcast, if you tag me at Jeff Winters and you write Reggie, R-E-G-I-E, which is the name of our awesome product, I'm going to select 3 individuals, do a quick interview to make sure that everybody's doing it for the right reasons. And then I'll select one person and I will work with you and I will get your dream meeting. And I will follow up with Sales Hacker and let them know when it's done. It's not going to be instant. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take a while. But I want to put my skills to the test and benefit somebody in your audience.
That's fantastic. The Dream Meeting Challenge, folks. You heard it here. This is a recorded live to tape, first time announcement. This is going to be amazing. Okay. We'll take you up on that, Jeff. That sounds exciting.
I'm excited.
All right. The Dream Meeting Challenge. You're going to get it. Whoever it is, could be Angela Merkel. Doesn't matter.
Well, we got to be reasonable. Like it's got to be we're going to have some qualifications. It's got.
You're already backpedaling.
Yeah, I know. It's got to be in business. Like it's going to be reasonable. But I promise you, somebody's going to get an awesome, amazing meeting that they never would have otherwise got, and we're going to make it happen for them.
I'm excited for that. We love that. So that's gonna be great. And folks, if you're out there listening, make sure you hop on LinkedIn when you're listening to this episode. Find Sales Hacker. I'm sure Jeff will have retweeted or reposted this episode. Put your name in the comments at him so that he knows that he's been tagged. He'll reach out and schedule, and we'll see if we can get you a dream meeting for whatever it is that you're selling.
So at me and then the word Reggie. At Jeff Winters and the word Reggie. Do not at the person you want to get the dream meeting with. That's gonna screw the whole thing up. At Jeff Winters and the word Reggie.
But just for folks out there, you spell Reggie with 1 G, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. R-E-G-I-E, Reggie.
Got it. R-E-G-I-E. Their new platform where they can tell you by persona, by tone. All you got to do is give them who you're trying to get in touch with, and Reggie will tell you the answer to that question. So we're excited for it. Jeff, it's been amazing having you on the show. One last question for you before you go.
Yep.
We have a sort of pay it forward, follow the breadcrumb trail kind of portion, as I'm sure you are aware. When you think about people that if it influenced you, that have had a huge impact on you, books you've read, podcasts you've heard, who are some people or one person that comes to mind that you think we should know about besides you as we're making our way along the road of life?
Yeah. So I'll give you a person, and then I'll give you a couple of books that have just really disproportionately impacted me. So this person is Henry Schunk, the CEO of ZoomInfo, and I'm not saying we're close by any means, but I've met with him a few times, and I've just been so inspired, like pre-IPO, just so inspired by what he did with that organization. Myself as a customer, how we've been treated, the product evolution, and just the amazing strategy that he put in place through organic growth and acquisition and fundraising, like how he weaved it all together. And look, I got a view of it from a million miles away and 3 hours worth of conversation, but I was just somebody who's had a profound impact on me in my life and how I run the business. In terms of books, love books in like 2 categories for me. I love philosophy books and I love business books that are encyclopedic. So like chapter 1, verse A, type 2, like there. And so in those categories, I love the Ryan Holiday books around Stoicism. And I love Principles by Ray Dalio is one of those that I just think is the greatest. So
awesome. What's the one I read? Stillness is the Way, I think, was one of those Ryan Holiday books. Anyway, all right, Jeff, folks are listening, besides tagging you for the Dream Meeting Challenge, how can folks get in touch with you or with someone at Sapper if they're intrigued? Maybe they want to hire you. Maybe they want to test out Reggie. Maybe they want to work with you. What's the best way to get in touch?
Best way to get in touch on LinkedIn. Direct Jeff Winters. Of course, go to the website, sapperconsulting.com. And trust me, my team will be in touch. If the SLA works, they'll be in touch in less than 5 minutes. So stay by your phone.
Will do. Jeff, thanks so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you on Friday for Friday Fundamentals.
Hey, Sam. Thanks so much.
Hey everybody, Sam's Corner. Love that conversation with Jeff Winters, one of the world's gurus, as we said, in terms of getting a meeting. And there was just a ton of great content in that conversation. I hope you wrote it down, but if you didn't, let me recap some of it for you. So first of all, the whole point here is that the job of outbound sales is going to get harder and harder and harder. And you can't just be a robot. You can't just be doing it the same old way. You've got to evolve. You've got to adapt. So here's the checklist that he mentioned, just so you have it in front of you. First of all, you've got to be testing different email domains in case yours gets jammed up. So deliverability is the number one key for future-proofing your outbound email. The second is getting a great list perfection, because you've got to be able to get into the email inbox. To get into the email inbox, you need accurate email addresses or you're going to be marked as spam and get kicked off. Great email content. And remember, written in the tone and the style of the buyer. Don't be lazy about it. And remember the email preview. Remember that email preview. When they're looking at the preview, that part cannot look like a robot, even if it was written by a committee, right? So that part needs to have something interesting, something different, something personal. He mentioned, I just got back from a job. I'm sitting down to type you this email after dinner. If you send one of those emails, make sure it is after dinner that you send it. Don't send it in the morning and say, I was just thinking about you as I got out of my evening bath. Also, that would border on creepy. And he says, don't be creepy. We learned about that in Friday Fundamentals. But the point is, email content has to be on point. And you got to be thinking about it. And you've got to refresh this email content at least once a quarter. And then you need channel specialization. And he says by practitioners, by a committee of practitioners, meaning the social channel, meaning your messaging on LinkedIn, should probably / definitely be different than the messaging you have on email. And that should be different than the voicemail that you leave. And all of it should be memorable, personal, and interesting. So I thought that was a great conversation because those are highly actionable insights in terms of how to make sure that you're able to get a meeting. And remember the Dream Meeting Challenge that Jeff mentioned. He is going, when we promote this episode, in the comments of the promotion, put at Jeff Winters and then put Reggie, Regie, and he's going to look through and he's going to select 3 people to interview. And one of those people, you just tell him who you want to meet with, he will get you that meeting. And that Nick Saban story is fantastic. So it's going to take creativity. It might take a little bit of persistence, but Jeff will get you that meeting as long as it's not Angela Merkel. I don't know what he has against her, but apparently something. At any rate, folks, thanks for listening. Thank you again to Sapper Consulting for sponsoring the Sales Hacker podcast. Make sure you do check out Reggie. Reggie is using artificial intelligence to create entire outbound, inbound, and even follow-up sales campaigns faster. So go to go.regie.io for more information on how to do that so that you can be sending the right message at the right time to the right person using tone, using nuance, and using the things that are valuable to that persona, all by using Reggie. The second sponsor is, of course, Outreach. Outreach is the #1 sales engagement platform. Check them out at www.outreach.io. If you want to reach out to me, you can. You can email me, sam@revenuecollective.com, or you can go on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/the word in/Sam F. Jacobs. Other than that, folks, I'll talk to you next time.